Welcome to Lilas. If you grew up in the 90s, you probably know what that stands for. And by default, this podcast is for you.
Welcome to season 3, episode 48.
Woo-hoo.
Hey.
And rolling on with our Lilas listener suggestions, we are talking how to rekindle the romance today.
I still love it. Oh gosh, if you guys could see what we talk about sometimes before we get on here and record, Jen just all of a sudden just spit out this French accent thing, and I was like, holy shit, you've got to do that.
It's never as good as the first time. Have you noticed that? Like the first, we just need to hit record like the minute we pop on our computer because
Probably.
I mean, we laugh so much and then we hit record and it's just, I don't know. It's just not as good when it just rolls off the tongue the first time. Anyway, let's hop into it. It's almost Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is right around the corner, like it or lump it. And so, listeners had asked if we would talk about how we rekindle the romance with our partners. So,
Mm-hmm.
let's dive right into that and talk about love.
Let's talk about love. Yeah. So I guess just to kind of throw this out there first, the time for love is just not one day out of the year. We're talking about it in regards to Valentine's Day, kind of coming up. And, we always associate this with, this is the time we go out and have a nice dinner and get dressed up with our significant other. But then if that's not happening, the other 360 whatever days it is of the year, notice I just
64.
skipped that. Well, thank you.
There's 365 in a year.
Then we're not doing anything. We're really not doing anything to kind of foster that relationship. And I know it's tough, because we're moms, we're doing like all the different things, taking care of ourselves, whatever. We can go through the list. But at the cornerstone of our families and our lives, if that is also not being nurtured at other points of time, then that can really be a hardship that
Yeah, one day a year is not going to carry you through the other 364.
no,
Well,
no.
and relationships are work. And anybody that tells you they're not is lying.
Right.
I've been together for 18 years. Like that romance has changed dramatically from when we were young 20-year-olds to now 40-year-old parents.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to work at it. And it takes effort and recognizing when you need to do the work,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to focus on things sort of in silos like self-help or exercise, like those types of things, but your relationship is part of that work that we always talk about, doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships are part of that. And I mean, I'm going to dig deep into my psych training here, but if I recall correctly, the Coastal Carolina University taught me something about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if I recall, it's like, you have like your physiological needs, which is like air and food and water. And then you have what comes after that? I know that love was like a primary need.
Belonging and things like
I
that.
know what it is. So then you have like shelter, safety. Like that's another, basic need that we need in order to thrive and survive in life. And then the third thing is love. And that's being able to demonstrate love and then also receive that love. And so it's a basic need that we have as humans. And so I personally love Valentine's Day. I know people have all kinds of feelings about it. They're like, yeah, it's a Hallmark holiday. It's all those things. I agree with you. It's completely commercialized, as is Christmas these days. But um, but I love that there's a day where it forces men to think about love, or it's just a national recognition of love, which is one of my favorite things. So, if not my favorite thing ever. So, at any rate, love is one of those things that we all need and we need to give. And so talking about how do we rekindle that when the romance is low, and ladies and gentlemen, you know what I'm talking about, those times when you feel disconnected from your partner. I mean, I think everyone has experienced it in our lives. I certainly have.
Mm-hmm.
you get back in a groove. Because I think if you stay disconnected for too long, that's when you start to have fraction. Is that the right word? I don't know.
Yeah, friction,
Then,
fractions within the
yeah,
relationship, both.
friction. It's early. It's early, people. Um, that's when you start to have that friction in your relationship, and that's where you start. It starts to unravel. That's my opinion.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I think that so often we think that it's the other person's job at times to maybe be the, I don't know, the spark, but we have to be, if that's the case, we have to be the kindling to help get it going. You know what I mean? This is not just, fire isn't formed through one element, it requires three. And so, in our relationships, it does require, everybody to kind of show up to the party, you know what I mean? If you want to keep this kind of thing going with your partner.
Takes two, baby.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what are some things? What do you
Some
and Jeff
things.
do?
Well, I think there's a couple of things I was thinking about this morning, early this morning when I do all my meditation and podcasting. I was thinking about, you know, for us, one of the things that I think has helped the most is when we decided to start taking solo vacations, just not solo like independently, but together without our children. That was huge, and we're in the midst of planning another one. But there is something about really waking up in a new place and space and having nothing on your to-do list except breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it creates opportunities for you to have like meaningful conversations and in a non hostile kind of like environment. You can have a meaningful conversation anywhere, but there's something about doing it over a cappuccino in a cafe in Europe. It allows for just some really great communication, which I think is the basis of feeling connected to somebody. Sure, you
Mm-hmm.
need that physical aspect, but you have to be able to communicate those deep desires and with your partner.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you can create an environment where you feel safe and comfortable, having those conversations, the that's the
It's the
best time to,
jam.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys do a lot of vacations, just the two of you. Do you feel that way, that you feel
Oh my God.
more connected when you return from a vacation?
Yeah. And I think that for us, it comes, or at least for me, it comes down to that we just do them on our own so that we don't have another, like you guys sometimes will travel with another couple. It's just the two of us. And in some way, even though we can pick up on different languages or whatever else, there's something that is just truly connecting about being in a different place. And the only person you can truly speak to is your
Hmm.
partner, you know?
Yeah.
And that I think is just a very automatically connecting thing that just happens. If we're sitting in the middle of Qatar, you know,
Mhm.
they speak perfect English, but I'm just saying, other people, you can hear people around you, and it's just the sense of knowing that you're the only person that can truly understand me in this
Yeah.
space and place and time. And I think that that does serve as a beautiful way to connect with your partner,
Hmm.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah. I also think it's important to build in just regular time at home, whether that's a day date or a date night out. A lot of people, I know several people that have weekly standing dates with their husband.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't, but I have several friends that do that. And they're like, it's been great for our relationship. And we feel so much more connected just having that day that we can look forward to, and, we're not on our phones, we're not in front of the TV, we're not dealing with our kids. Like we hire a babysitter and we roll out. And that may not be something for everyone, not everybody
Mm-hmm.
the ability to get a babysitter once a week, but just building that time in, whether that's once a month or once every other month, whatever you is feasible for you, just that time to like get away and really like look at each other and have a conversation, because it is so easy to get in the rat race, and then before you know it, it's bedtime and you've been doing the
Yeah.
same thing for 6 weeks and you haven't really had a deep conversation or express things. And again, it's just like communicating those things to your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sometimes I can feel a little bit disconnected when my husband travels a lot for work because we aren't big phone talkers. We have very short conversations, and so like naturally you feel disconnected from people you haven't talked to consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, and then also, you're working and caring for your children and doing all the house chores. And so they come back and that disconnect for me, I always feel a little bit disconnected initially when he returns. And so, and I just like talking about that. And what can you do? Because my love language is acts of service. I'm like, well, here's what you can do. Here's your list of things I need you to do to show me your love and feel a little bit more connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
no.
he shows love in a different way, you know?
Mm-hmm. And that is important. We mention love languages on this show a whole bunch, and I'm not trained in it at all.
I mean, I
Um,
read a book. I don't know that
right.
I'm trained in it. I
I
read a
took a
book one time and I retained some of that information.
took an online test. I think through the actual source is what I did. So again, are we perfect human beings? Absolutely not.
Mm-mm.
But it does render some good information, and I agree with it. I mean, mine is more about like affirmations and positive
Mm-hmm.
affirmations and talking and so forth. And so that is something that's very important to me is to sit down and be inquisitive about each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's going on in your life, like, and for him then to reciprocate that. So that is like one of the key things I think that promotes the type of connection is that, I'm asking about your day because you're often working and doing things, but I also want you to ask about mine.
Yeah,
Like what am I
for
doing?
sure.
What am I working on? Because that shows interest just in another person. And whenever you don't do that, it puts off an area of like just kind of like self focus, or that you think that your things that you're doing are more important, or that you're not even on my mind whenever you don't ask those things. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that too can create some hurt. So I think it's part of that is just continuing to kind of like make it a point to do those like daily check-ins, like how are you, how was your day, you know what was something that happened that you were grateful or fun or whatever, you know what I mean, that you were
Mm-hmm.
proud of, or even just following up on something that the other person has been focused on or working on, I think helps to just even briefly kind of create a spark or a connection within that day or
Mm-hmm.
moment. So maybe you're not traveling to France or, going on a date night, but at least whenever you get the opportunity, which everyone has those opportunities whenever the other person comes home or whenever the kids have went to bed, just to kind of take a few minutes and do a random check-in.
Yeah.
And that can feel really awkward at first, especially if you
Mm-hmm.
haven't done it, or if the other person's like, this is kind of weird. So the hell what?
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking for in this relationship? Are you looking for it to stay stagnant and kind of like mundane and just continue doing the same thing day in and day out?
Yeah.
Or are you willing to kind of expand and go into another area? Because like what you said, our relationships grow and change over time.
Mm-hmm.
And our response to each other grows and changes over time. And unless we're responsive to that, that can lead to some nastiness too, I think. So,
Yeah. You've got to have some self awareness and awareness of your partner too. And that
mhm.
made me think of another thing that I think is really important with keeping that romance alive is just supporting your person in whatever they're doing, whether it's they're training for marathon. I personally don't love when my husband trains for marathon because he spends a lot of time running on the weekends. Like that's our time. And he's running for like 2 and 3 hours and then he comes back and he has to stretch for 30 minutes and then he's hungry and then he's tired. And I get like a little annoyed, but at the same time, I'm like, this is important to him and
Mhm.
I'm going to support him. I'm going to show up for him when it's race day. I'm going to show up for him, in those times when he needs me so he can go do a long run,
Mhm.
encourage him. Hey, have you gone for your run today? Because I know it's important to him. To the same tune, this podcast, like he listens to almost every episode, or he used to. I don't know if he
Oh,
still does, but
God love
you know,
him.
he's very supportive in what's important to me, whether that's, hey, I got to record today. Can you pick the kids up from school? Whatever it is,
Mhm.
he's on it because he knows this is something that is meaningful to me. So like I think about my mom and all the car shows she went to for my stepdad. Like she
Mm.
didn't care about cars, but she knew it was important to him. And that truly, I think, is a big component to keeping your relationship intact is showing that support, even when it's not your jam, even when it's not something that's necessarily important to you, just recognizing like this is super important to them. You know, Jeff doesn't run those marathons with you, but he's there for you at the finish line. And
Mm-hmm.
he, you know, he's supportive of you training and doing what you need to do to accomplish those goals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that is important that we show up for our people in the things that are important to them, not necessarily to us.
100%. 100%. And that really does. I like how you put it. It's like we can't, I don't even know, like be so self-focused that we're not willing to also allow their interests to come into our hearts as well. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's really important, even if you don't care about it, even if you
Yeah,
don't even understand it, you know, whatever. That's putting yourself aside to be willing to expand and open up to another person.
mm-hmm.
And you know, it is reciprocal over time, you
Yes.
know, and so it does kind of maybe take some training or some coaching along the way, but it can become reciprocal, for the other person to then start to say or do little things that indicate that they are, you know, pivoting more towards that if you're feeling that deficit within your life too. So, um, yeah, you just got to maintain that, you know,
You do.
you have
I'll
to.
tell you another one that I thought of this morning that I'm curious if you feel the same way about this, but I find it interesting how you can rekindle your romance by not being around your partner. So, for example, we go out, we have a girls' dinner like once a month, and we go out to dinner and we have a couple beverages and we
Mm-hmm.
close down the restaurant and we laugh and
Mm-hmm.
we tell our deepest, darkest secrets. And when I come home, that is like a ripe opportunity for romance, right? I've just had
Mm-hmm.
a phenomenal time with my girlfriends. Um, you know, my husband has held down the fort. I'm
Mm-hmm.
appreciative of that, that I can go and do that. And so I feel like um, sometimes getting away from that person and having like a really good time, you
Mm-hmm.
come just more, I keep using the word ripe, and I don't know if
I
that's
like it.
more willing to engage in romance. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
just I think that sometimes it's important. I think it's very important to always have like your own life
Mm-hmm.
outside of your relationship. They can't be your everything.
Only thing. Yeah.
Right. You've got to have other people that fill your bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my girlfriends are that for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that sometimes just getting away, even if it's for like, you know, the evening, can
Mm-hmm.
come and just totally shift. You know, you listen to what your girlfriends complain about their significant others, and then you're like, oh, well, I don't have it that bad. At least I'm not dealing with that, or you know, and everybody's got different tolerance for different things. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not well, my relationship's better. It's not that. It's not a competition, but it is something that it just makes you appreciate. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, I don't have to worry about cooking dinner because my husband does that, or whatever it is.
Sure.
Um, so I think sometimes that can help with the romance department as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, my husband definitely, I think, does that a whole lot more than what I do because, you know, some of my bestest friends in the entire world skip the state. I don't know, 2,000 miles away, but um, it, I like to do solitary activities too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's really good for me to just go off and just be alone.
Well, it
And
doesn't have to be a dinner. Like you go
yeah.
to yoga,
Mm-hmm.
you're around a community of people that you trust
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Same
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Just getting away and doing something you love to do that
Mm-hmm.
brings you joy.
Yes, yes. And it doesn't even matter what that is. I think it's just that you have that, you still have your own autonomy and are still a part of a relationship. Definitely.
Hmm.
Because that's what attracted you to that other person to begin with. It was who they were as an
Hmm.
individual instead of, you know, it doesn't start in reverse. Like you're a couple and then you're attracted to each other, you know?
Yeah.
But I think another element to keeping a relationship alive, and this may sound somewhat silly, but I think it's having an element of playfulness, like within your relationship,
Oh, yeah.
where you're willing to, you know, do the silly things Like maybe you're going to have like a board game night, you
Mhm.
know, or this works out so much better for him because he's actually a singer and can sing. But we'll do karaoke night downstairs. I
Yeah.
got this silly karaoke machine, probably off Amazon for Christmas, because previously we had just been singing to YouTube, which we still do, but now we have a mic. So, but we'll go downstairs and just like sing karaoke for a few hours.
Yeah.
We're not leaving the house. We're door dashing that night, you know,
Yeah.
or fixing something from the cupboard. And that is an element of playfulness that just helps you stay connected and be supportive, because we're sitting there cheering each other on, or, you know,
Mhm.
requesting songs for the other person to sing. Um, yes, it's 100% silly, but it just, I think, helps to have laughter, or it helps to have that kind of, again, playfulness within the relationship, because it keeps it youthful, you know,
Yeah.
and it fans a
So
different
serious all the
element.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Not yeah, these deep conversations. It's just fun to have fun with it. So I think what you're saying is just have fun with that person, whatever that looks
Yeah.
like, whether it's karaoke or a round of golf, whatever it is, like go have
Mm-hmm.
fun with your person and and enjoy that activity, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've mentioned before on one of our previous episodes, but anytime we do like I don't like the word diet, but anytime we do like a plan or a program,
Mm-hmm.
something I think it's good for our relationship initially, maybe not that first week when you're like not eating sugar and cutting out alcohol and all the things that
Mm-hmm.
your body starts to crave. Yeah, you're a little bit feisty and
Mm-hmm.
pissy and it might spark a fight. But if you power through to like week 3 and really start to feel the effects of whatever you've put into place, I feel like that in the past has always sort of rekindled our romance as well. Not only are you feeling good about yourself, you're looking good, but it's something you're doing together and it's like you're in it together. It's like, well, oh, I felt this way today, or I felt this way today, and you can share in that relationship. And I always feel a little bit more connected whenever we're doing something like that
Mm-hmm.
together.
Yeah, because your bodies are going through something similar, you know?
Hmm.
And that's even another level of a cool connection whenever you not only have like the mental or the emotional aspect, but you're doing some type of program training activity and you can feel the physical effects in a similar way to your partner. That's just another layer to that onion that just, you know, helps to kind of, again, keep that closeness that comes from
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah. We
super
used to
good.
work out together a lot and we don't as much anymore. He goes to a gym and I just work out at home. But when we're traveling and stuff, we'll work out together. And I do miss that because that's another way that just, doing a workout, like he's way more athletic than I am. Um, like, but I don't care. Like I'm not
Oh,
competitive in that way. So I don't care. It's just nice to like, you always feel better after workout and it's
mhm.
nice to do that together because it's just that time. Nobody's looking at their phone. Nobody's like, distracted. You're in it, you're focused, and you're doing it together.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also a big thing that we acknowledge that when we want to rekindle the romance, there's always going to be obstacles. And
Hmm.
probably us as moms, we're going to be the first ones, more than likely, to throw up the blocks in that. You know, well, what about the kids? I'll feel bad leaving them. You know, I don't want to stay gone too long. What are you doing? That's what I want to say to every mom that says that. What are you doing? Like, this is, I'll get on a little high horse with it, but for real, like, I always think whenever it comes to my children, not that I don't love and want to spend time with them and be with them, yes, but at the end of the day, it comes down to me asking a question: what am I teaching them? You know,
Hmm.
what important lesson are they gaining from whatever base interaction I'm having with them, and how is that going to help them to be a functional, healthy adult? Now, that sounds like a whole bunch of real complicated questions, but it really isn't. Because if
Or you're
my,
like, what am I modeling for them?
right,
Yeah.
I'm modeling a healthy relationship, I'm giving my children the opportunity to have healthy relationships with other adults, which
Hmm.
by default helps them expand and become broader individuals and human beings.
Better
Every
people.
single time. Yeah, every single time I've ever left either one of the kids, which by the way, the oldest is now 20. What?
Crazy.
God bless. But anytime I've ever left them with someone else, I have learned more about my own child than what I
Mm,
would have had I stayed there with them because
yeah.
someone else had the opportunity to flower that individual and allow something else to bloom or pollinate,
Hmm.
whatever. And they make a new plant, you know, they make a new craft or they learn a new fact or they have a new song. They have something new and different because they spent time with someone other than me. And that is a beautiful gift. And it promotes secure attachment for our kids. And we
Yeah.
don't want our kids to be, you know, have separation anxiety or be kind of codependent or whatever else. We want them to feel secure within themselves because that builds their
Hmm.
trust in us as a parent that
Yep.
we're not going to leave you with somebody who we don't trust. You're going to be fine. Everything's going to be cool, whatever. And then to kind of go off and do this. And I love those opportunities because I get to see, again, a different color of our kid be able to emerge.
Yeah. I saw something interesting the other day. It was a graph or some data on the amount of time that we spend with people in our lives. And it's like, in your 30s, maybe your early 40s, if you had your kids a little later, like some of us, that's kind of like the peak time that you're going to spend with your kids. That's the most amount of time. And then it drastically declines as you age. And I think about that that's very true, I think, for most people, right? That we
Mm-hmm.
spend the bulk of the most amount of time with our kids when they're little and they need us more. And then as they get older, they need us less and they want to spend time with their friends. And so you just naturally spend less time together. And same thing with your parents. When you're little, you spend a lot of time with them. And as you grow older, you spend less and less time unless you're, somebody that maybe your parents live with you. Maybe you're, going to be an outlier in that case. But
Mm-hmm.
on average, the person we spend the most time with in our life is our significant other. And as you get older, that amount of time increases.
Mm-hmm.
And it just reiterates that choosing your partner and nurturing that relationship is probably the most important one that you're going to have. When you think about, the golden years and, kind of like those that last third of your life, we'll say, for if we're lucky enough to live in, into old age, you're going to spend a lot of time with that significant other. And so it's worth the work, I think,
Mm-hmm.
um, at this age, even though this is our time with our kids and we get plenty of that. Taking a couple hours or taking a vacation for the weekend or a week or whatever it is, isn't going to d- take away from that time with your kids.
Mm-mm.
You're still going to have plenty of time, but you're nurturing and fostering that lifelong relationship with your significant other. And I think it goes back to, why do we rekindle the romance? Why is it important to be aware when you feel disconnected or if they feel disconnected? Because that's your person. That's who you're going to
Mm-hmm.
spend the majority of your time with on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, maybe the most important relationship that we have. Um,
Definitely.
and
And
so
yeah, I
you've
was
got
just
to you've got to be willing to work for it. You've got to be willing to do the work just like everything else.
hmm. And you want to know who that person is whenever the kids do bail, you know? Like, I don't want to be sitting in the living room with this dude who I met whenever the kids were, I don't know, 12 and 2 or whatever, and not know who that individual is. And me sitting there like, wow. I mean, the gap of disconnect that gets created when our kids leave, if we're not constantly making that type of connection, it's like the Grand Canyon or the Marianas Trench. Like it gets big. And so
Yeah.
you want to be making those connections because as we transition through life and as our kids transition through life, you're not going to have a solid base at those points. And transitions are times in which we want to have something solid underneath our feet because we feel like there's so much else outside of our control. And that relationship does serve as that grounding if you maintain those connections, you know?
Yeah. How often do you hear about people whose kids go away to college and they look at each other and they're like, we have nothing in common and they divorce, you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that's saying the same thing, and that if you have done these things to kind of rekindle your romance, some of the suggestions that we've thrown out, hopefully, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I guess we'll tell you in a couple of years when our kids, Sarah's kids already in college, but
Yes, thank God.
all of our children have left the coop and we look at
Mm-hmm.
our husband, hopefully by taking the time to foster this relationship and rekindle the romance, we will be excited for the time that
Mm-hmm.
we have together and what our futures hold, and instead of saying I don't even know you anymore.
Right, right. And again, this doesn't have, if you can do things that cost money, great. Invest in doing them. I would
Right.
encourage the idea that if you are trying to save for something later, it's not going to be, I'll use your word now, as ripe if you don't invest in it today. And
Mhm.
so, even if you're planning to do something really big and fun later on and you don't want to spend maybe $100 or whatever to go out to eat, I would say go out to eat. That will make
Mhm.
that, again, the connection, the growth, the strength better at that point. Then whenever you go off to do whatever it is, then it'll be more fun because maybe that dinner you talk about things, you dream about that trip, you talk about the time that you're not going to have the kids in the house, whatever. That gives you the opportunity then again to create, to plan, to then foster something that you want to see happen later on. And that wouldn't have happened if you didn't take the time to do it.
Right. You're not going to do it at home on a Wednesday night after you've cooked a meal and worked all day. You're not going to sit down and go, let's think about if we could go anywhere in the world. But you're going to do it when you're a half a bottle of wine deep at a restaurant. You're whatever. You don't have to be you know, you don't
Sure.
even have to drink, whatever you're doing. It's just, like I said, it's more of the setting that elicits these kinds of
Mm-hmm.
fantasy conversations, if you will. And some of them come to fruition, you never know what's going to come out of that. So it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Just just do it. Just do whatever it is. Go on the date, book the trip, run the marathon, whatever it is. Do the
Mm-hmm.
thing and see what happens.
Yeah. And maybe even if you don't know what it is to do, maybe, I don't know, ask your partner. What do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do to like spark something up between us? What do you want to do to like have some fun this weekend? You don't have to be the creator of all the ideas.
No,
Throw it back out there to the universe. Maybe look up some things in the paper or online or whatever it is that you do, and then throw it out there. Ask your partner.
mm,
And so that way, again, you're collectively doing something together that puts the relationship at the forefront. And let
coffee
it
dates
go.
on Fridays. That's another one we do
Mm-hmm.
frequently. We'll go get coffee after we drop the kids off at school. And I think, even if it's like 30 minutes and it's just on the way
Mm-hmm.
home from dropping the kids off, it's 30 minutes of unencumbered time of just looking at each other and enjoying a cup of coffee.
Seriously.
It can be so simple. And I'm
Yeah.
not, my relationship's not perfect. I'm not preaching that it is by any means. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
anybody's relationship is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
There are times I miss the cue or, get in my own head about things, and, it's not my priority, but ultimately my relationship is is a priority, and you got to keep coming back to those things
Definitely.
and being aware of when it needs to be nurtured and when it can roll on. You can
Mm-hmm.
focus on something else.
Mm-hmm. Every Wednesday is our day because Rachel has an activity that she takes part in. And so we use that as an opportunity to do things. And people
That's
might,
good.
well, we can't do it because my kid has practice or this, that, and the other. I never was the parent that stood there and watched my kid practice anything. I'm just
Shocking.
not right. But
Shocking.
why am I going to do this? They have a coach, even if maybe your husband happens to be the coach or the assistant coach. Have another parent step in for a moment or two. Do something, but
Yeah.
that does create an opportunity. Like we're not teaching Rachel how to ride a horse. Do I need to watch her ride a horse? No, they got my phone number. She falls off, we'll get a call. You
That's what
know,
you're paying them for, right?
right. I'm not I'm not gonna sit here and watch the kid throw a ball or hit a golf club, No, ma'am. I'm not that person. But I think
Yeah.
that
So
my kids benefited from that. Last night I was dropping Rachel off at a theater class, and I'm standing there thinking that I'm thinking in my head that she wants me to like stay there until the class starts instead of standing there in the hallway by herself. And she looked up at me, God love her, and says, you can leave. And I was like, thank you. Because in
yeah.
my head, I'm thinking this kid wants me to stay because she seemed like it was kind of like a little awkward of a setting. She doesn't really know a whole bunch of other people or kids there. Kid feels secure enough
Yeah.
within trusting me that I'm dropping her off at a safe space. Even if she doesn't know people there, she still has that foundation of trust that we've built. And she's cool. So why am I standing there acting like a dope, whenever
Then
she
you could
just wants,
be
right,
doing something else.
which I
Know
happily
your
did.
romance.
Right.
Tackle your man at home.
That's it. Do
Go
what you
wrestling.
gotta do.
Wrestling.
Wrestling. What is it? Rolling between the sheets or something? That what Elton John would sing about.
Oh, I don't know
Something.
that song. I just say, let's wrestle. Let's
What's
do this. You
What's
want to
wrong?
wrestle later? Maybe.
That's awesome.
Depends on how I feel. All right. I think that's all the tips I got. I'll check with some others. Maybe we'll add those to the resources page. I did see an article that I'll link as well on that resources page, but nonetheless, happy Valentine's Day. It's already passed by the time you've listened to this. Hope you had a happy Valentine's Day. I hope you did some wrestling with your
Right.
other. And yeah, keep the ideas coming. We love these topics. We love talking about them. We just love the engagement. So keep it up. Lots of messages lately. We're trying to respond to all of them on all the different platforms. It's a little overwhelming some days. But we so appreciate the engagement. So check us out on our Facebook or our Instagram and TikTok. You can find us on all of those at Lila's Podcast. You can find us on our website. It has links to every platform that we're on. Sarah does a great job with our website. So check out the lilaspodcast.com. And until next week, guys and gals, Lilas
We're out.
or Lilab. Think about love you like a bro.
That's right. Definitely all inclusive here.
Great.